Welcome to Conversations on Change, where we explore how the world of work is evolving and what that means for organizations and leaders. Today's conversation is around something that's quietly reshaping how organizations operate, the rise of the flex executive economy. For a long time, transformation was driven by stable, full time leadership teams, but that's changing. Today, organizations are increasingly bringing in fractional, interim, and on demand leaders to drive critical work. So, naturally, it raises a few important questions. If talent is becoming more fluid, how does transformation change? And who really drives transformation in this model? To explore this, I'm joined by two wonderful speakers. Priya Rao is COO of Bridgetall and Board Matchup, two platforms built around one of the biggest changes of modern leadership, the rise of flex executive economy. She works closely with senior leaders and companies navigating one of the most significant shifts in modern leadership, the move away from traditional linear career models towards flexible, outcome led executive contribution. Priya hasn't just observed this shift, she has lived it, shaped it, and built platforms around it. From fractional leadership to portfolio careers to the rise of the flex executive economy. She brings both the market intelligence and the human insight that most conversations on the future of work need. Amit is a global thought leader and HR visionary with a career spanning 37 plus years, shaping future ready organizations across diverse industries through leadership transformation, cultural coherence, agile workforce capability, and tech enabled people architecture. Over the years, he has held leadership roles with marque organizations, including Tata Motors, CESC Limited, Britannia Industries, Vodafone, RPG Group, and Reliance Group, bringing deep expertise in building scalable people systems and resilient performance cultures. Currently holds the position of Director HR and CHRO, Bennett Coleman and Company Limited, The Times of India, India's largest media conglomerate with multiple power brands across print and publishing like The Times of India, The Economic Times, Navbharat Times, Maharashtra Times, to name a few. Thank you both for joining us today. Dr. Amit, when we talk about the flex executive economy, what does that actually look like in practice?
Okay, so first, I think it's important that we have clarity on how the talent itself has got redefined in the last 1 decade or slightly more than that. The way industry has started looking at talent has nothing to do with the nature and terms of the engagement for resources, whether it's flex or full time. In my mind, any human resource, be it direct or on indirect engagement, who creates economic value for the organization, is talent for us. And that's when we saw the emergence of this kind of flex economy that is the subject of discussion now, through gig engagement models. And that had a kind of a win-win scenario for both the organization as well as the flex talent. Now, also in future-ready organizations, I think that talent is increasingly becoming a metaphor for capability at the right place, at the right time, at the right price. So going forward, this capability, which I said has to create that kind of an economic value for the enterprise, it can come from anywhere. It can be a full-time employee, it can be a part-time employee, it can be contractors, consultants, strategic partners across the workforce continuum. So we need to reimagine talent with these futuristic roles, which are classified into our core roles, which adds value to the balance sheet, and also roles that can be managed through associated partnerships. So the moment this paradigm shift happened with organizations focusing on the core roles, which created differentiated economic value for them, I think the engagement models also become irrelevant. And that gave the birth of this flex economy, be it indirect kind of an engagement through whatever engagement forms that we can think of. In practice, coming back to your direct question, in practice, it means a business no longer waits to build every leadership skill in-house. If you need a digital leader for a specific transformation agenda or a revenue expert to open a new market, or say, for example, an interim CHRO through a transition, or a specialized advisor for any kind of AI governance, we just go ahead and get that capability for exactly the duration of the tenure for which you need it. So in BCCL or Times of India Group, when we designed the org-gig ecosystem, we kind of identified 15% of our job roles, of the as gig roles, which also is called flex roles. It's across revenue, editorial, engineering, enabling functions that could move to a flexible engagement model. So, and we also developed an in-house model which anchored around 5 parameters to identify these gig roles. So number 1 is the role flexibility. Number 2, the role impact, the talent availability and readiness, and of course, the cost benefit. On a scale of 100, any role scoring above 70 was marked as green, which means it's clearly a giggable or a flexible role. Or a full-time role can be converted into a gig role or a flex role. Having said that, let me also be upfront in saying that for most of my career, the working assumption was that we predicted what was that every capability was supposed to be sitting permanently inside the organizational chart. That was primarily to have better control and supervision. That was a mindset. But the VUCA and the BANI business world has compelled us now to recalibrate that mindset, that assumption, and made us believe that flex economy needs to be adopted to solve a business problem and at the same time to sustain and grow in this extremely uncertain, volatile, and disruptive business environment.
Priya, from what you are seeing in the market, how does this play out in practice?
What I call flex executive is mostly of unbundling of leadership, where leadership is no longer just one role, one career, one organization, one title for years together.
And as I said before, even a decade back, organizations used to start with a question, what role do we need to hire for? Now, the revised question now is what work actually needs to be done? What kind of capability on demand, as you have mentioned, will help deliver it? And how long that capability is required? I think that's a big shift that's happened in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
What really stands out is that this isn't simply about a different way of hiring, it's about a different way of accessing capability. So, Dr. Amit, from your experience, how is this shift impacting the way organizations think about work, workforce, and workplace?
Yeah, so once you start asking a different question to get that capability, as I mentioned, everything downstream also shifts. So then work moves away from fixed job descriptions, as we are aware of, towards clear outcomes. So workforce moves from a full-time employee model to something closer to a talent, what we say a talent portfolio. And workplace, it stops being a location and becomes essentially a collaborative system. So according to recent Aon survey, what I was looking at, 65% of Indian organizations across industries, across sectors, were at various stages of adopting some form of this gig or flex workforce model. And also BCG report has projected that the Indian economy, it can service up to 90 million jobs and transact over $250 billion in volume of work. And these are not fringe numbers. Also, what we did at BCCL, Times of India Group, we built a 2x2 allocation matrix that mapped every job role on these 2 axes, whether the work was transactional or strategic, that's one axis, and the other was whether it is tied to a specific geographic location or could be centralized. Based on that, this simple framework, it surprisingly large number of roles where the work itself did not demand a permanent location or an employee to be based out of a specific location, that came up. Okay, so it is not about the work. The role demand actually decided where the person is will be operating from. It can be any office, it can be home, it can be a hybrid. Okay, so this brings up the fundamental shift to what I say a distributed and interconnected capability ecosystem. So it is a work design conversation and not for HR. it's not a kind of a HR conversation and we have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that it marks a shift from owning talent for HR or the leadership to orchestrating it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a move from talent management to a talent portfolio management. So we need to embrace this fact that organization's real capability, it sits across the workforce continuum, can be from direct to indirect in various engagement forms and shapes. It can be contractors, consultants, platform-based specialists, okay, and gig professionals. So HR also has to learn how to navigate and manage this entire portfolio and not just employ life cycle stages of a permanent slice.
Really like that distinction, and it's about moving from organizations from thinking about headcount to thinking about capability. So yeah, Priya, what does that resonate with you and what you're seeing when organizations approach digital?
Yes, exactly. I think this is the shift that we are seeing that's happening. So organizations are no longer talking about roles. I mean, having said that, I would say that when they look at the fractional role, I would say it is not again a one-stop solution for everything. They look at the fractional role for particular problem to get solved. So whenever we discuss with organizations, not everybody is like clear whether they want this as a solution, but whenever we talk to them, what we suggest is bring the fractional leader for a particular mission. So it's not a role, bring them to solve a particular problem, bring them for a particular mission. And if you are not like, if I'm talking to any and like Dr. Amit said, that it's not just the HR. I think a lot of times these issues are also discussed with any CHRO, CEO, CIO. When we are talking to them, we tell them, what's your problem statement? If you can explain that in one line, what's your mission? If you can explain that in one line, that's when a fractional leader can come and help you. If it's like a very long thing, if they go on talking about different things, then again it's not a one fractional leader who can come and solve that problem. So that exactly is our question when we sit across and ask them that when do you need a fractional leader, what do you exactly need that leader to do, and most important is, are the infrastructure, is their organization ready for that? I'll just give a small example, because sometimes the leadership knows that okay, we need a fractional leader for say improvement of process. Is there could be something that AI adoption, I think Amit you mentioned, so it could be an AI adoption, technology adoption. So that's what they say, we want to improve a process through some system adoption, and they want to bring a industry expert, a fractional leader for that. But most of the times that is not, that's just a surface level problem. So there are a lot of other things. When the fractional leader comes in the picture, they see that okay, it's not just about adopting the technology or improving the process. There are a lot many deeper concerns which needs to be addressed. So in that case, it doesn't really become a one expert's job. Then there could be like different experts which are required for different kind of to provide different solutions. So I think those are some of the examples where we feel that organizations need to deep dive a lot more, rather than just saying, and I think we did say that it's not a job description. It's about what exactly is the problem that this leader will come and solve, or this leader will come and help the leadership team.
So, yeah, so what I understand is that organizations are clearly looking for greater agility and specialized expertise and the ability to move faster. But it's not just organizations that are changing, the workforce is changing as well. So, Priya, what's driving executives themselves to choose fractional or gig roles today? And what are they really
Yeah.
looking for?
Yeah, very interesting. And this is what I see day in, day out. Like in my role, am fortunate enough to talk to so many executives who are either thinking of their transition, who are already in the transition, or who are in their corporate role and they don't know what to do next. And many a times, if I like 3 out of 5 executives that I talk to, they always say that I need some change and I need to move from my career. And most of the times what role they are in, so they are already at a C-suite executive role, they are managing different territories, different product lines, different challenging businesses, and it's very difficult for them to find the exact job which might fulfill their career aspirations in the same way, because a lot of times when we grow in the organization, we ourselves have created that space for us. We ourselves have, based on our capability, we keep getting different roles. But when you are at a certain level and then you look for a similar role outside, it really becomes very limiting. So what I'm saying is it's very difficult to find that one career aspiration for executives in one single job. And that's when the fractional role or flex executive or what is commonly known as portfolio career come in the picture. So that's the shift I'm seeing. And executives, they want to kind of do different things to cater to their career aspirations. So they could be in reality doing a fractional role with an organization. They could be doing an advisory board role with somebody. They could be a mentor for a startup founder. So while doing these two, three different portfolio fractional roles, they are able to kind of cater to their career aspirations. So that's the shift I'm seeing. And second point I'm seeing, which is going to happen more and more in future, is the longevity, because I see all of us, I think, fortunately, are going to live longer and longer. The lifespan is increasing, and a lot of organizations are also thinking in terms of how to come up with the wealth products which are for, which will support you for next 50 years, how to kind of come up with a technology which is survivable for next 30, 50 years. So longevity is a very important aspect there. And how like nobody wants to retire. Everybody wants to work till they want to be doing something meaningful, and that itself is going to add a lot more workforce to the fractional or a flex executive economy. So I see it's just going up and up. The more we move forward 10 years down the line, I think the current workforce versus the fractional workforce 10 years down the line is going to be much higher. That's what I feel.
Dr. Amit, I'd love to get your perspective on that as well.
No, as Priya has nicely, articulated, I think it's a win-win that needs to be struck at any given point of time. While the flex workforce would look for much higher flexibility, empowerment, despite being in a fractional engagement, but the organization also needs to provide that kind of an infrastructure, provide the legal and statutory, kind of a comfort to the flex workforce, apart from providing the empowered kind of a ecosystem where they are also included in the organizational culture and ecosystem. And that's very important. The moment the organization starts seeing them as kind of a temporary one-time kind of a resource coming in and working for a very fixed tenure, then the entire philosophy and the purpose of having this kind of a flex economy gets completely broken. Okay, so I think it should not be looked at as if it's a reaction to a crisis. It should start getting built up into a design thinking process of the organization itself, which hovers around the workforce and the workplace. I think that is very important, because the challenges that we see in the gig talent ecosystem, because we have fairly matured as an organization in this on practicing this model, is that most of the people who are looking at various roles across leadership hierarchy, the first question they ask, and it's a both way, both for our internal managers as well as for the talent who's looking at it from outside, is that will I be accepted as part of a larger organizational ecosystem in terms of culture, in terms of engagement, in terms of entitlements to various employee benefits? How will I be perceived inside the organization? And the larger question is how will I be perceived externally to the larger world, to my friends, to my relatives, to my families? Okay, how will I be perceived, and to my peer professionals? I think that's what we need to ensure, that it is more of an engagement at the back end, the engagement terms, but the front end to the world-facing, ecosystem, it is absolutely, there's no difference between a CEO who's on full-time and a CEO who's a flex or a fractional. Whether it's in terms of visiting cards, whether it's in terms of email signatures, whether it's in titles, designations, everything remains the same. I think that is what needs to be ensured. And that's what we find are some of the factors which are creating a, make or break in the decision making for this talent universe who are looking at such fractional or flex roles.
Interesting how the shift is being driven from both directions. Like organizations are rethinking how they access talent, and while executives are rethinking what a successful career looks like. So, yeah, so this brings us to the next question. Once an organization decides to embrace this model, how does transformation actually get delivered when leadership itself is more fluid? So, Priya, if you could share your perspective on this.
Yeah, so in fact, I will say that with the fractional workforce or flex executive leaders, I feel the transformation is more focused rather than I would not call it fluid because like I said, they come in for a particular mission. So when this workforce kind of comes in the picture, they have exactly have the objective that they need to achieve, and I think they are experts in their field, so that's why they come in the picture. There are several examples where we are seeing this happening very successfully. So when organization is the post-merger integration, I think a lot of times an HR executive is brought in for organization restructuring after the post-merger integration. I think these are the executives who are expert in doing that. So that's when they come in the picture, they know exactly what to expect, how to mobilize internal talent, how to get the transformation done. AI adoption, we actually spoke about it, and transformation. So these are some of the leaders who have already done it, maybe made mistakes in the previous kind of different projects, but when they come in as a fractional leader, they exactly know what mistakes the existing team could make, and that's how they can kind of help them beforehand. Lot of times organizations come to us, there are some who are going for IPO. So before going in for IPO, what exactly is required? So for example, CFO coming in the picture only for this particular readiness, I think that CFO exactly knows because he or she has done this with several organizations on multiple levels. So when they come in the picture, they exactly know how to navigate internally, how what kind of guidance framework, what is exactly required to make that organization ready. So I feel when they come in for this particular mission, more than objective, I would call it mission, they are the ones who have done it in different scenarios, different industries, different stages of their careers. So they are much in a better place to advise the organization and help mobilize their team as well. So I feel with the transformation with the flex executives could be much more faster than the internal team, and a lot of times internal team has their own day job also, because whenever there is a transformation, the regular operations don't stop. You still have to meet your numbers, you still have to complete your regular, if it's HR, your processes, you still have to complete your targets. So they need to continue to run the business, continue to run the machine, but at the same time do this transformation. So I highly feel that whenever this expert comes in the picture, that's when the speed is quite accelerated for the transformation.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, Priya. And especially when leadership becomes more fluid, which the question Priyanka asked, I think the transformation can no longer lean on hierarchy alone, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
in a traditional setup, authority tends to come with the role.
yeah,
But in a flex executive model, I think it comes from the mandate you are given, your credibility, the sponsorship behind you, and quite honestly, how fast you can earn that trust once you're in the room. That
yeah,
comes, that I think that changes how transformation actually gets delivered. The internal leader brings context and institutional memory to a large extent, but the flex leader, he brings that specialized expertise and outside in perspective and the pace at which it is required to deliver and transform. And the sponsor's job, it has to be have the sponsorship internally with the top leadership. And the sponsor's job is to create that alignment and clear the friction out of the way. For example, in the gig talent ecosystem in BCCL Times of India, it started as an experiment to manage the cost challenges during COVID period. Okay,
yeah,
but it brought in the process a lot of clarity on the emerging flex model around workforce, and workplace. It helped us get the answers to many questions which were raised by changing this the business technologies, for example, which were brought in during the COVID period, the talent psychographics, and the measurement of work, which became the key focus, the outcome and not the effort that you're putting and from where you're working. Okay, this gig talent model actually acknowledges that traditional definition of work, what we are used to. I think that is where a resource, a talent was expected to perform all tasks from a specified physical workplace. That has undergone a change. Now a job role has to be broken down into tasks. Some tasks can be automated. Some tasks require people to apply higher order of thinking skills. As a result, what's happening is some of the job roles will no longer require full-time engagement. That was evident when we started off it as an experiment in the COVID times to manage the crisis. And that is where we have now changed our workforce mix to, as I mentioned, 15% of our job roles across functions are managed by gig talent today.
Yeah, that really highlights that transformation isn't just about the expertise. It's also about how you are influencing relationships and bringing people along.
Yeah,
So,
also,
yeah.
I'm taking a cue from what Priya said. One thing we observed during this entire transformation journey is that the gig professionals, which Priya also emphasized, actually show a higher intent to put in that discretionary effort compared to full-time employees. And 60% of I would say the gig workforce, which we were looking at as a dipstick, we found that have updated their skills within the last 6 months. So the learning agility piece is real, more than the full-time resources.
It's more and more for fractional. I think it's more and more for flex executives because
Absolutely,
also
absolutely.
it accelerates in a very big way because they are moving from one assignment to another assignment, and that adds a whole lot of value in their own portfolio. And that's why I said that when executives are thinking about career enrichment, I think the flex executive economy kind of gives them a very high satisfaction from the career enrichment rather than looking for the next opportunity in the similar industry at the similar title. I think that may not give them all the expectations that they have from their career aspirations.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're bringing in a flex executive for a transformation, you are often getting someone who's sharper on the latest thinking, and precisely because their livelihoods depends on staying current and relevant, right?
Yeah,
And this entire model works best when this transformation is treated as a mission rather than a position being held.
yeah,
Okay. The old question that we used to ask is that who owns the seat?
yeah.
So the better question now is to say who brings that capability that the business actually needs to move forward. That is genuinely a different leadership mindset, and not everyone, to be very frank, finds it very comfortable.
So, yeah, so Dr. Amit, where have you seen this model create the greatest impact, and where does it become more challenging?
I think this model works very well wherever the work is clear. They're specialized, and it is specialized with measurable outcomes. When we applied the gig identification framework in BCCL, the roles that scored highest on convertibility, they shared certain characteristics. The work was transactional or project-based. It could be performed remotely. It required standardized or niche skill sets, or it did not demand any deep cultural understanding of the organizational institutional memory to deliver. For example, roles like digital transformation, project acceleration, AI adoption, market entry, merger and acquisition support, or bridging any kind of short-term leadership gap. So again, as I mentioned, we use this 2x2 matrix. On one axis, the nature of the work from transactional to strategic. On the other hand, from relationship to business, from centralized or what can be managed centrally or what can be managed locally in terms of geography. The quadrant that lit up for gig allocation or the flex allocation was the one where work was knowledge intensive, it was insights driven, on demand, and could be performed remotely, essentially roles where niche professionals can just plug in, deliver, and move on. So those were the areas where we found success in getting this kind of a flex roles. The next part is where it did not get, or we did not see that kind of a success. I think in roles which is unique core to the business, action, or very decision intensive, which involves deep understanding of the organization, as I said, the institutional memory, and which requires direct functional oversight. Or at times, if the brief itself is very vague, if the sponsor is very weak, or if the role demands years of organizational knowledge management or cultural stewardship, that is where the model struggled.
Our kind of work for board matchup and digital, what I have seen is like a lot of times there's a high commitment from management about what we call as mission. What's the mission? Why we are bringing in the fractional leader or flex executive? Only thing is, it's not really translated to the team. So a lot of times the interim CHRO, interim CIO, or the leader, flex executive leader comes in the picture. The leadership knows what this person has to do, but the team does not really know. So they are all figuring it out, that why this leader has come in and what is it going to be replacing my role. So it's that's not that mission is not really translated well to the team, and that's why there is a resistance, and then the whole implementation or the objective for which this leader is brought is difficult to achieve. So but of course there are a lot of leaders, lot of flex executive leaders who have done this, who have seen this happening. So when they come in the role, what they do for first few weeks is the build trust. They know they are on the timeline, they know they want to achieve it, but I think creating this trust internally and setting the stage that why they are there, these are some of the areas they will not get involved, it will run as it is, but these are the areas where they will help, and in fact they are there to accelerate organization growth and not to replace anybody or any function. So when that stage is set, I think that's when these roles kind of become very successful, because several organizations do say that, oh, I know about this fractional interim resource, we tried it before but it did not work. So that's when exactly we ask them the pointed questions, and then we see it for ourselves, that what could be the reason why it did not work. Another
Yeah.
side from the executive's point of view is also, I think, Amit, you did mention that some of them may not be ready for actually doing this fractional and flex kind of executive roles. It's also very clear when we talk to them. So, very simple example is the fractional leaders are not bothered about what title is given into them, whether it is VP, GM, president, they are not bothered about it. So any simple question, if somebody asks me that, oh, okay, this is a 6 months role, this is what I have to do, but what will be my title? So that's when we start understanding and we start coaching this person whether this executive is really ready for that kind of fractional role, because a lot of times there is not defined authority when they come in the picture. They are coming in as an expert, so they have to use their influential authority, their influential leadership a lot of times. So just an example that sometimes we can also gauge that which leader could be ready for this next fractional assignment, and sometimes they may not be ready. So just the two sides of when it can not maybe work properly.
Yeah, I agree. And my view on this is very simple. Flex executives cannot compensate for poor internal alignment, period.
Yeah, yeah,
Accelerate the transformation, but the organization still has to own it. Okay,
yeah.
the model is very powerful, but it was never meant, or it is never meant to be a shortcut for leadership indecision.
Success isn't really defined by the number of days or how much time someone is working. It's also defined by the values that they are creating, and of course for that to happen the organizations have to be ready as well. So Dr. Amit, what are some early signs that an organization isn't quite ready for this model yet?
I think the clearest early sign is lack of clarity. If a business cannot state what is the outcome it wants in a single sentence, the model is going to struggle with whatever talent you bring or whatever engagement model you implement. Weak sponsorship is another I would say, is lack of readiness. A flex leader can bring real expertise, but they cannot manufacture internal legitimacy on their own. Someone senior has to sponsor and stand behind them. The other thing is the mindset and cultural resistance. The moment internal teams start seeing the flex executive as a threat, as a vendor, or as an outsider, the whole thing becomes political before it had a chance to become productive. The culture in some organization, it restricts our how we treat freelancers or contract professionals on par with the internal employees. They are not given equal status like the full-time employees. And they are made to feel like second-class citizens with reduced entitlement as per the policies and guidelines, be it health insurance, be it travel entitlements, be it infrastructure and support, which are needed to set them up for success. And underneath all of this sits the governance or the lack of it. When you're thinking or when you're asking me about the early signs of failure, that the organizations are ready for it. So there are also real questions around non-disclosure of knowledge and information, confidentiality, non-compete arrangements, and particularly when this flex executive has simultaneous engagements with multiple organizations. And it can be also with some competing organization as well. So a simple test I would apply to this is, has the organization actually decided what must remain core and what can be flexed? If that answer is not clear yet, it is too early to adopt and scale this flex engagement model.
Yeah, yeah. And this has like on practicality, so many times I have seen this because a lot of organizations do talk about it. But when we sit across and we actually start discussing that this is the level of leader, this person will be coming, how it works in your organization internally. And then the IT policy comes and says that we can't give the flex leader email address. We can't give them access to very simple things. We can't give them access to our internal OneDrive. And then without all these policies in place, it's very difficult for this leader to be kind of succeed. And Amit, like you mentioned, that this leader cannot travel in the same class like others. This leader does not cannot kind of apply for a reimbursement. So I think those are some of the things which kind of come in the picture. So sometimes the policies are still legacy policies, and if your thoughts are future oriented, then there is no match. So I think some of these internal processes and policies should also be updated whenever organizations are looking at this talent. And a lot of times I see, okay, maybe HR leader, the leadership team, they are very excited, enthusiastic about this. They are talking to us. And then the legal might say that, oh no, but this comes like a contract employee, and this is how we will not be able to kind of do the contract, sign the contract. So many, very simple things, administrative things can come in the way. So I think this is the first step maybe for any organization. If they are looking at implementing this model, they need to look at whether they have a simplified administrative processes, simplified onboarding processes, their internal compliances is kind of at par on board with this. I think these are very simple things that first they will have to adopt before they can successfully hire a fractional or interim leader.
I totally agree with both of you. You've mentioned some very important points, because bringing in a great talent doesn't automatically guarantee success. So, Priya, what are some common misconceptions organizations have when they bring in fractional leaders?
Yeah, so most important is fractional is not serious, is not permanent. Of course, it's not permanent, but it's fractional is talent is not there to kind of help us solve our problem or take us through. I think they look at fractional as this person may not be as serious about our issues as we are, or this person be as dedicated to our organization because they are giving 2 days to us, they are giving 3 days to us. So which means they won't be as committed as our other full-time employees. I think that's the biggest misconception that I have seen. In fact, at the same time, these executives are all the more committed and passionate about bringing results to their organizations, because that's what is their CV. More than CV, their success stories gets them more assignments in future. So even if they are working 2 days, 3 days, I think bringing success in that role is most important thing for any fractional interim leader. And that's what organizations kind of sometimes mislead, that they feel fractional may not be a full commitment from the leader.
Most critical misconception is when the organization is made to believe that these fractional engagements are meant to drive cost optimization. The cost efficiency might be a byproduct. And yes, engagement or flex engagement can save a lot of administrative and compliance cost that you would otherwise incur for a full-time resource. But the real value is access to the right capability at the right moment. There is also, I think, a misconception that fractional means partial accountability, but it does not. Time can be fractional, but expertise can be borrowed, but accountability cannot be outsourced, right? The other mistake I have seen is assuming that fractional leaders do not need any onboarding because they are not full-time employees. So the traditional onboarding, induction arrangement does not work from them. If anything, they actually need sharper onboarding than a full-time hire because the mandate is usually more complex and runway is much shorter, right? We thought carefully about this when designing this our gig lifecycle in BCCL. Even for mid-level gig roles, we mapped out a full lifecycle management system covering position requisition, joining date, talent profiling, continuous performance management, leave attendance, contract renewal, everything, entire lifecycle touch points. At the leadership level, the entire onboarding needs to be even tighter. It has to include that business context, clarity on stakeholders, the decisions, the entire decision-making metrics, the cultural cues, and the entire boundary within which they need to operate. And the best part is they need it very fast. It has to be accelerated. Yeah. And also, I think there's always the temptation to leave governance for later. So in this model, I think governance is not administrative overhead. It is the operating backbone. So flex leadership, it will work very well when it is designed with the real intent, with our recalibrated mindset and with genuine sponsorship from the top.
I think that's a really useful reminder that fractional leaders aren't simply external consultants. They become part of the leadership journey. So yeah, I think we've had a really interesting discussion on how organizations are adopting the flex executive model and what it takes to make it work. And I'd like to spend the last few minutes looking ahead. So Dr. Amit, how do you see the role of leadership itself changing over the next few years?
The leaders, as I said, the mindset is very important. Okay. And the first thing that I would expect is to have the leaders demonstrate that authenticity in their behaviors, to recalibrate their mindset and asking the right question to bring the organization on the same page on this critical transformational agenda around work, workforce, and workplace. And then they have to have the sponsorship to start the process of identification and choice of roles, which can be converted into giggable or flex roles. Okay, the questions that we need to ask is the work strategic or operational? Is it time-bound or ongoing? Does it genuinely require the organizational knowledge, or it can be outcome or based, which can be measured with a reasonable window? I think that's where the leadership mindset is changing. And over a period of time, I find that leaders need to create that clarity without always having that direct control, and also build trust quickly with people who were not there even 6 months back, and make real decisions on, at times, incomplete information. And for CHRO specifically, I think the change, this change in workforce planning has to be real time. And it can no longer be a kind of, as you have mentioned, also headcount planning exercise. It has to become a capability planning. What kind of skills we need, where do they actually sit, how we access them, and how we govern them properly. So I think the leaders who applies their mind and judgment proactively will be the ones who can assemble this capability effectively to create the right kind of enterprise values. From managing fixed teams to orchestrating capability, art and science of leadership wouldn't be about overseeing an ever-shrinking base of internal resources. It will be about curating capability or contribution across a network of sources.
Yeah, I also look at it from two points of view. One is, of course, how we look at flex executive is about, accessing the talent or capability when it is required. So at the right time, like unbundling of leadership. So leadership is not like one job. So you need one expertise, you access that expertise at that time, solve the problem, then you add another expertise. So one is organizations thinking strategically and adding these different flex roles to their leadership portfolio, their planning, strategic planning, that one part of it. But second part, in few years, I also see it happening that if some of the organizations are not doing it proactively, there could also be a push, because a lot of times when I talk to the leaders in the industry now, there are some roles, very critical roles, which are open in the job market for so long. We all know that there are more candidates anytime than there are roles, but there are some roles which is very difficult to find the right executive candidate, and that's when we feel that sometimes it's there because they are not looking at the right place. The mandate is such that they need to maybe open it up. If they look at somebody who has been there, done that role, wants to come in and help, is not looking for permanent 9 to 5, which is now 9 to 9 kind of a job, but they have the skills. Only thing is they don't fit this full time description. So a lot of times I see that organizations are not looking at this right place where they should look for that talent. And when there is this shift of executives going to opting for more flex executive talent in next 10 years, then this is could even be a push that organizations have to look at some roles. And I think, Amit, you said some wonderful things, that you have set aside a fixed percentage for this, and which is really futuristic. And I think some organizations are doing it. Those who are not might be forced to do it in future because they are not finding what they need in the regular talent space that they are looking at, and they have to bring that fractional and flexible talent for those kind of requirements. So that's how I see the future going towards.
Yeah, so what I hear from you is that leadership itself seems to be becoming more fluid, more collaborative, and much more centered around enabling others. So, as organizations adopt more flexible talent models, Priya, how do you see organizations balancing between a strong core team and more flexible leadership going forward?
Yeah, all right. So, yeah, I think they are. So, this requires in coexistence. So, I think we mentioned in our discussions sometimes that it's not taking away the full-time leadership, and it's like a core built up for any organization. They know the culture very well. They have this whole institutional knowledge, and that's why the core leadership team, that stability is required every time. But the fractional leaders, the interim leaders, the flex talent is coming in the picture to solve a particular problem anytime. So there should be I wouldn't recommend the percentage, but I feel that both needs to be coexistent, both needs to be there. It is like in a hospital, you have a core team in a hospital where there are doctors and nurses and the whole staff who's running the hospital, who's managing the patients day in, day out. But in a particular day, if you have a very specialized surgery which needs to be done, then there is always an expert, the expert surgeon coming in the picture to do that particular procedure. So I think I would just kind of compare it with that every time we need a core team to run the organization, but every time there needs some intervention, there needs some support, then organization has to be open in bringing that support at the right time. And it may be in different forms. Like there could be a digital expert coming in and working. There could be a change and transformation expert coming in and doing their work and going out. There could be an HR executive coming in and helping that particular problem or solving the that the organization is facing and going out. So there could be different areas where these experts and executives are coming in and solving, and the basic structure, the basic core team of the organization remains same.
No, just to top it up. I think, honestly, we have to stop treating them like visitors. And that's the mindset is a big shift. We can have the tool set and skill set, but the mindset is the key shift that we like. We cannot treat the flex executives or the gig resources as visitors. They have to be made part of the talent portfolio, and the team needs to know why they are there, what they do not, and how decisions will actually get made. So I think a well-defined RACI matrix always helps in providing this kind of a clarity. And this was something which we were initially we were deliberating in BCCL when we designed the gig benefits framework as well. 85% of our organization's policies were made applicable to these gig and flex professionals. That included travel entitlements, internal job postings, transfers, POSH policies, social media guidelines, access to cafeterias, employee clubs, and also, obviously I mentioned about the medical insurance coverage. So the principle was very clear. If they are working in our organization to create enterprise value, they need to be treated as part of the ecosystem and not as outsiders on a temporary tenure. We need to quickly bring them up to speed on the business context, the key stakeholders, the operating rhythm, the data access, confidentiality expectations, and also the cultural nuances that exist in the organization, which are beyond the stated job descriptions for the fractional role holders.
Yeah, I like that idea of balance. And it isn't really about choosing one model over the other. It's about bringing the strengths of both the models together. So, thank you. I think what today's conversation has really shown is that while the way organizations access talent may be changing, the fundamentals of successful transformation haven't changed at all. It still comes down to clarity, leadership, and bringing people together around a common purpose. As we bring today's conversation to a close, I think one thing really stands out. As organizations move towards more flexible talent models, transformation is no longer just about strategy or structure. It's really about how work gets done and who comes together to do it. What we are seeing is not just a shift in talent, it's a shift in how organizations access capability, drive change, and deliver outcomes. And in that sense, transformation is no longer owned by fixed roles, it's enabled by the right expertise coming together in the right way. A big thank you to Dr. Amit and Priya for such a thoughtful and insightful discussion. Because in the end, transformation isn't just about what organizations do, it's about how intentionally they rethink work, talent, and leadership. Until the next conversation on change, stay curious, stay adaptive, and keep driving change with intent.